Hey everybody, it's Open World Chat. We're back. Myself, John Odom. Mark Card is here too. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you, John?
I am not bad. I'm looking forward to the conversation we're having today because it's part two of the one we had a couple weeks ago, which was fun. This, I think we were both saying this one's turned out to be a little tougher than I would have expected.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why that's true is you and I, we're fairly critical thinkers about stuff. And
Sometimes.
so it's easy to find, you know, what we're looking for in our topic. When you're talking about movies and whether or not they should be remade, and then which candidates are good ones and which candidates are bad ones, we're just it's easy for us to find things that might put movies in a category to where we think, well, if they just changed X or Y, we could have a much better version than we already had.
Hmm.
So, no movie is really flawless, despite what Quentin Tarantino says. Um,
I have to think about that someday. Perfect movies. I wonder if they exist. Hmm.
yeah, well, I think I've talked a little bit about what my idea of a perfect movie is if there's any scene, if you cut it out, it makes it a different movie.
Hmm.
And so I think there are some of those, but I don't think anything's ever perfect. There's always something that could have been done better or differently that would have an impact on
Final
the
product.
overall quality of it.
Yeah, sure. Well, then when we do that episode, we'll have to parenthetical almost perfect movies.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
there
that's
you
I
go.
think.
And when we do that, I think we should break out of genre and just look at movies in general. By God.
Oh yeah, I think that's great. Yes, I think we ought
Mhm.
to do that for sure.
All right. So coming up soon, in a podcast near you, that conversation. But right now, we're doing the mirror conversation that we had before when we talked about movies that shouldn't be remade or should have. What did we talk about last time?
We
We
talked
talked about
about movies that should be remade
should be
because
remade. Right, right. And some that did get remade that were kind of cool and that
yes.
worked. Yeah, well, this time we're going with movies that shouldn't be remade, and maybe some that were remade that shouldn't have been at all.
Yeah.
We're going negative here. We're going negative on you. It's a grumpy day. It's gray outside here anyways. The temperature last night up here in Vermont got to 13 below. So I'm grumpy. I don't know how grumpy you are, Mark.
I'm not grumpy at all. It's supposed to be 80 today.
Oh man, damn it. Now I'm grumpier.
Well,
See
see,
what
the
you've
thing
done?
is, though, what's going to happen is in another couple of weeks, we'll get an ice storm. We'll have 3 inches of black ice on the roads. I'll be constantly begging my pipes not to burst. And the Republican led electrical grid in Texas to somehow miraculously hold up. So, we'll get our karma.
All right. Well, we'll talk about something. We'll talk about some hate then too. We'll save some hate for you so we can talk about it when you're down for it there. But movies that shouldn't be remade. There's one at the top of the list. I have a feeling there's one at the top of both of our lists that we share. I might be totally wrong about this. This might be
Well,
second or third, but I bet I know. I bet the one on top of your list is going to be the same one on top of my list in terms of genre, in terms of sci-fi
yeah.
or horror. What do you got on top of your list there?
I think it's a tie.
It's a tie.
Yes, I could not decide between these two. And I think it's a tie between 2001 and Blade Runner.
Really? Oh man, I was wrong. I was wrong. Blade Runner. That's an interesting. I want to talk to you about Blade Runner. But talk to me about 2001 because that's definitely on my list too.
Well, there's a couple of reasons why you shouldn't do it. How are you going to find a better director for Blade Runner than Stanley Kubrick?
Oh, you mean 2001?
Yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
You did a
No, no,
little
yeah, you're right.
switcheroo
Yes,
there.
yeah, yeah. My brain's not working. I'm telling you, man,
It's that mirror
having
episode thing.
having the
That's what's
flu
happening.
has messed with my brain as much as anything else.
Did you get your shot?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
oh
that's
well.
why it's only taking a week to recover instead of 6.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
Um, uh,
Anyway,
so
2001. Sorry.
with 2001, I mean, how are you going to? I just don't think it's possible to match up to Stanley Kubrick.
Mhm.
Lighting, production design, practical effects, casting. I mean, how do you do that? How, well, let's rewrite the U.S. Constitution. I mean, that's not a perfect document, but how do you get that cadre of brilliant young minds? How do you do better than that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Kubrick is so he's got such a signature signature style. I mean, some of his older movies, Paths of Glory. You ever see Paths of Glory?
Hmm.
Um, I love that movie. I think it's a great movie. I think it's just well directed, it's well acted, but it is before he had his signature style. Now
Well, I
watch, I'll
mean,
be wrong that it's
I
Kubrick,
think
but
that
I think it was.
the signature style is there, but you can't see it.
Hmm.
It's a black and white movie.
Yeah.
And really, when you think about his color movies, Clockwork Orange, The Shining, even Full Metal Jacket,
Hmm.
you got to have color to really see his lighting. And for me, it's the lighting and the production value in the movies that really make them distinctive. And I don't care how good you are not Stanley Kubrick. So how on earth do you make that movie again? And I know there are lots of people out there that are saying, uh, oh, but think of the special effects. No, I'm not going to think of the special effects. I think the wormhole acid trip at the end of that movie looks beautiful. I
Yeah.
think it's not something that you risk rewriting the Constitution for and end up without, the First Amendment in it.
Yeah.
It's just one of these things that you can't touch it. And I wanted to talk about something else before we started, and I forgot. I think there are two kinds of movies in this category.
Oh, I do too. That's funny. I wonder because I had wanted to mention that too. I wonder if you're going to say the same thing. I bet they'll be a little different. What's yours?
They might be. We'll see. I think there are two broad categories you put movies that shouldn't be remade in. One, this movie, like 2001, is just so fabulous and so unique and so visionary. You can't remake it. It's not possible.
Hmm.
You can't recapture everything that was done. It's the old lightning in a bottle cliche. And then, of course, is the exact diametric opposite movies which are just so bad that remaking them would be an assault on uh, any viewer's eyes.
Oh, like Plan 9 from Outer Space or something like
Yes,
that.
why on earth? Or there's a whole bunch of these. Um, until recently, I was wondering why anybody would make Barbarella, but then they
Mm.
cast Sydney Sweeney in it, and I think if anybody's going to pull it off, it's going to be her. People
Hmm.
think she's a terrible actress, but the people who think she is a terrible actress haven't seen her in Euphoria.
Hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. My two categories, uh, or the two movies that you can't make, are first of all the ones that are iconic in the sense of they have become a fully integrated, sewn in part of our sort of collective popular culture consciousness.
Yes.
The other one, I think, for me, is movies that if you made a remake, they would always come up wanting in comparison.
Yeah.
There's just no way you could do it otherwise. Maybe those original movies aren't iconic, but something like RoboCop, the remake of RoboCop, it was fine. It was fine, but that first RoboCop haunted it. It
Well,
was.
and the first RoboCop kind of really captured a little bit of kind of the zeitgeist of what was going on then.
Mhm.
It's the end of the 80s or the middle of the 80s, and Society is super materialistic and seems to be lacking a bit of moral compass. And you've got the whole urban decay, uh, Rust Belt city kind of vibe going on with Detroit, and it captures a specific point in time, I think, quite well.
Mhm. I It does. And I think within geeky circles, RoboCop is iconic. It's
Oh,
not
I think so
iconic
too.
in the greater culture. Um, and I don't think that the remake was just made for geeks and nerds. I think it was made for the general culture, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, it just you're never going to make one that compares well, that wouldn't be in the shadow of the original. And
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right. And I think my ultimate category, the first one, movies which are so good they shouldn't be remade.
mhm,
I think the ones that are going to be the best in that category are going to be the ones that capture both the dimensions that you talked about.
mhm. Now talk to me about Blade Runner because I had that on my list and I changed my mind on that, and I'll jump in and tell you why, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Well, the first one I think is kind of funny because how many times do you have to remake it?
Oh, dude, wait, more detail. Tell me what
There are so
you're
many
thinking.
versions of that movie out already. What
Hmm.
could you do?
Hmm.
You've got the director's cut and the ultimate director's cut and the, Circus Maximus cut and the original theatrical cut. And I'm surprised Zack Snyder hasn't tried to make a cut. So yeah, I don't see that
Yeah.
you're gonna do that. I mean, uh, and yes, I'm a terrible heretic in the science fiction community. We talked about this. I think the best version is the theatrical cut, the theatrical release. Everybody hates that voiceover, but if you've seen any number of uh, 1940s, 1950s adaptation of film noir based on these pulp novels, I think that narration fits in beautifully with that entire film noir genre and the pulp novels that it comes from.
Yeah, and I think in fairness, just to back you up here a little on that, I mean, I disagree. I like the other ones better, but um, it was a while before a second cut without it came out. It had already become a sort of nerd classic. It was
Yes.
already very much accepted by that culture when that original cut with the narration was the only one we knew.
Yeah.
So I think that's totally fair. I think it's fair. I don't think people who want to, retcon the original as some awful movie, that just doesn't stand up.
And I will say that the sequel, which Denis Villeneuve did,
Hmm.
I don't know anybody else who could have made that sequel very as well.
Hmm. I think that was great. I
And
love that sequel.
and one of the, this goes back again a lot to production design, art direction, photography, costume, palette choice. A lot of the why you can't remake movies for me is how do you recapture that?
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah.
and then there's other reasons why. Casting. I'm sorry. Uh Recasting Deckard, who's going to be as good as Harrison Ford was in 1982?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to do that fanboy casting thing, and right now I'm not coming up with anybody, but it's certainly a good challenge. I may,
Ooh,
yeah, I don't know. Who?
this
That's it.
this is like you and I have talked about this off podcast. Um, this to me in a bit in a way in terms of casting is like, well, okay, let's remake Casablanca. Who's going to play Rick? Well, when
Yeah,
Harrison
really.
well when Harrison Ford was in his 40s, he could have crushed it, but he's the only guy ever who could have played Rick.
I wonder if it would be different, but it would be interesting to see, and I may regret this as soon as it's out of my mouth.
Ha!
But but a younger Mickey Rourke trying a role like that. That would be different, but it might be interesting or might have been interesting.
Well, I think you have to do what they did for Lawrence of Arabia. Cast
Mm,
somebody who's a film unknown.
yes, yes,
Peter O'Toole was known in the West End in theater.
right.
He was not known as that's his first feature.
Yeah, no, that's totally true.
And so if you're going to do that, you're going to have to do this giant wide casting net, and it's going to be some boy from the Midwest that nobody knows who, has seen all these movies. He's watched Bogart, he's watched Harrison Ford,
Mhm.
he's watched all these guys and studied them. Um, there is somebody that comes to mind, but he's too youthful, too smart ass, not cynic enough. Glenn Powell, maybe.
Interesting. Huh. Yeah, okay. We're
But
managing the fanboy casting thing. Fine. We're doing
kinda, kinda. My
it.
film school people would be like, okay, pull the plug, podcast's over, we're done.
Well, I just will mention because I know we both got lists here, and it's easy. We're finding that it's easy to take one of these movies and just talk about it. We
Yeah.
could keep going about Blade Runner, have a whole episode about Blade Runner. But I decided that I've got a couple big exceptions to this rule that
Okay.
we'll get to. But in general, if the movie is based on a book or a story, that I think there's potentially always room to reimagine the source material. Go back to that book and reimagine the book. So that's why I decided to take Blade Runner off my list because I can imagine somebody doing that.
Yeah,
But
no, I think that's probably a good exception to this rule, especially because it's as you see from movies like Dune. By the way, I really have trouble with that book. I've never been able to finish it. And it's the writing style that bothers me.
well, God Emperor of might end up in our right wing. Well, no, I don't. No previews. Never mind.
No previews, no spoilers. But yes, and the reason why is because these books are so much richer, so much more detailed, so much more nuance, so much more uh cultural baggage, so to speak, that there are lots of ways to reimagine them.
Mhm.
And the problem you run into with doing Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is it's so weird compared to any other science fiction novel. I mean, uh, boy, if you want to learn how to think originally, read all that guy's stuff.
Yeah,
Philip K. Dick is an incredibly original thinker.
yeah, yeah,
And uh, somehow, amazingly, he did not run into the pitfall that you start believing that really crazy bonkers out of the mainstream ideas are just good ideas for
yeah,
society.
yeah. I think our third or fourth episode of this podcast 3 years ago, 3+ years ago, we had a scholar, a Philip Dick scholar on, and we just talked about him, and it was a pretty good conversation.
I mean, if you read anything he does, it's what I call a book that you have to pause a lot.
Mhm.
There are so books that are so dense with information or description or good writing that can't read more than 2 or 3 pages. And then
Mhm.
you got to go, all right, hang on, wait a minute. I got to think about this. And then you go back to reading a few minutes later, and then what? What was, wait, hold on. And
Mhm.
so it takes me a long time to get through books like that because I have to think about it at every step. So yeah, that's a good rule to look at. That's a good,
Mhm.
yeah, I didn't think about that. I'm mostly thinking about movies, not necessarily movies based on literary works.
Well, right now, I'll throw at you one of the exceptions I have to that rule,
Okay.
which is a good one to bring up because it also ties into it's another Kubrick movie, and that's The Shining, which probably won't shock you. And I think that one's interesting because it was remade, and it was remade as a television series. The casting was not great, but the series was written by Stephen King who
Right.
famously couldn't stand the Kubrick movie. He hated
Yeah.
it. Even though later on, when they did that, they just did that sequel a couple years ago. Oh crap, what is it called? It's based on the
Doctor Sleep.
sequel book. Dr.
Doctor
Sleep.
Sleep.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, Keegan was heavily involved in that, and he made it look like a sequel to the Kubrick one. So all I can assume is that he's come to terms with that. But, you know, that was another one that it's become iconic. It's so Kubrick idiosyncratic. Everything you make, it'll always be compared to it. The series was compared to it, and it just disappeared from any public awareness, I think, before the credits had even finished.
Okay,
It had,
so when we talk about The Shining, uh, that has my absolute most favorite jump scare of all time in it.
oh, which one? Wait,
Tuesday.
the, the Tuesday?
Yes.
What do you mean? What's
Very,
that?
very tense scene with so that all through the movie, they do title cards of what day it is.
Right. Oh, Tuesday.
That's right. You get this scene where you finally realize that Jack Nicholson is going bonkers crazy,
hmm
like Ted Bundy crazy, and then they play the string music up, and then bam,
hmm
in 8 foot letters, Tuesday. Everybody in the theater jumped out of their skin when that happened.
You know what was great? Another movie that did that that I loved that totally jump scared me and then made me crack up was Cabin in the Woods.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
That was hilarious, that title card. Oh, I loved it.
yeah, yeah. So I mean that's and that's totally Kubrick.
Yeah.
He like I said, now we're getting back to original thinking again, and I think this has a lot to do with what we talk about. It's very difficult when you have somebody who's that good at original thinking, whether it's in the novel or whether it's in the film adaptation. It's tough. It's tough to remake. It's tough to do the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Uh,
Okay, I want to talk about one. Um, let's talk about The Thing.
really? Uh, I thought
This
the Thing remake was awesome.
No, no, I'm talking about you should not remake The Thing after the John Carpenter version.
Oh, okay, I got you. Perfect. I
I don't
agree.
I don't think you can remake that movie and have it be any more frightening.
Mhm.
You can't make it shorter. You can't make it longer. The special effects are still holding up now.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think you could make it. And talk about surprises. My favorite thing about that is that if you speak Norwegian, movie's over after the opening scene. You know that, right?
No, I don't know
Okay, so spoiler alert for a 40-year-old movie. You know the opening scene where you see the guys running and the dogs running behind him?
Mhm.
The guy is yelling in Norway, "Watch
Oh,
out, the dog is a monster."
right, right. He is. I do remember that now. You're right. That's funny.
So John Carpenter gave away the movie in the first scene. So
Well, I'll.
and and so I think personally, I think John Carpenter is a he's made some great movies, but I think there are some things he could do better in almost all his movies. I don't think that's true here.
Mhm.
I don't think you can remake The Thing and improve on it more than Carpenter did.
You know, with the exception of what was it, Prince of Darkness? Is that
Yeah.
the name of the movie? I don't think anybody else. I have zero problem with that movie, but I think in general, you're absolutely right.
I think he's got some problems with his movies. And
hmm
I think he's a genius director in some ways.
hmm
I mean,
hmm
Halloween.
Which I'm gonna get in trouble here by saying I think is overrated, but
I think it is. I think it's overrated too. But I think the subtlety of Halloween is what makes it a great movie.
mhm, sure.
There is very little, if any, gore in the original movie at all. It's just tension, 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 and
Yeah.
then all out pursuit of Laurie Strode in the last 20 minutes of the movie.
Mhm.
So what I so one of the best descriptions I've ever seen of working in as a spy, as a clandestine intelligence officer, is somebody, I forget who it was, described being a spy as 90% boredom, 10% sheer terror. And I wouldn't say boredom in the case of Halloween, but
Right,
it's 90% ramping up to what's going to happen.
right.
And then Jason goes nuts.
Or
Not
Michael.
Jason,
Yeah, the other
Freddy.
Michael.
No, good God. I told you this flu is messing with my brain.
Oh, that's great, though. I love that. Um, I've got one for you, and you're going to
Hit
be
me.
like, "Oh yeah, this is well." There's an elephant in the room, first of all, that we haven't mentioned yet. That will, as long as we haven't mentioned it this far, we might as well wait to the end.
Sure.
But one fantasy movie, it's a fantasy movie, and this one's a little different. It's once again based on a book, but I don't think this book should be reimagined, and that's The Wizard of Oz, honestly. Now, Wizard of Oz is an interesting one because you have so much work that has been made in its orbit. And
Yeah.
I would throw The Wiz into that category too,
Yeah.
because it's so different. I don't think you can call it a remake, in my opinion, and that others will disagree with that. But I think
Yeah.
a straight up remake of that movie, again, maybe you reimagine the book. Certainly, other parts of the books have been imagined. I mean, you've got the Ozma of Oz cartoon. Obviously, you've got Wicked right now. You've got the James Franco vehicle, Oz
Wasn't
the
there a,
Great and Powerful.
yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say, wasn't there a sequel that had Mila Kunis in it?
I think that was Oz the Great and Powerful. I might
That's
be
it.
wrong.
That's the one I'm
But
thinking of. You're right.
those all exist in orbit around the Wizard of Oz. I don't
Yeah.
think you should take the Wizard of Oz itself and remake it.
Yeah. It'd be what comes to me to mind with me is remake it like the Warriors.
Like the Warriors.
Put it in an urban setting.
Wait, that is the Warriors. What was the original Warriors then?
It's but no, you put the
Oh,
Wizard of Oz in the setting that the Warriors is in.
oh, I see what you mean. I mean, The Wiz put it in a urban setting, but it was weird.
No, I don't mean that kind of urban. I mean
Right,
the actual city urban.
right. Now, The Wiz there on their home block and everything. But no, I hear you. That'd be an interesting approach. I still think you don't touch that main book again. I mean, like I say, I would accept the argument from folks that say, no, The Wiz was a full-on remake. And I get that, but I just don't see it
Well,
that way.
I think you make a good point though that there are a lot of movies which are Wizard of Oz adjacent,
Hmm.
but aren't really reimaginings of the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, per se, just as such, I think so. And I might change my mind on that as soon as we're done. Again,
I'm going to talk about one uh, that for obvious reasons you can't remake, but I think there are less obvious reasons. That's Back to the Future.
I think you're right about that. I don't think
Don't
you touch
try.
that. Yeah.
Leave it alone.
Hmm.
It is a great time paradox movie, one
Hmm.
of the best time travel movies ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two, how are you going to recapture that middle 80s flavor? You're not.
You're not. How are
And
you going to
even
recapture that casting too?
that's the other part is I don't care who it is, what Canadian actor you look for, there will never be a replacement for Michael J. Fox in that movie. I mean, this is Rick in Casablanca. This is Harrison Ford in Han Solo as Han
Hmm.
Solo. This is Vivian Lee as Scarlett O'Hara.
Yeah.
Can't be done, can't be replaced. Stop. I know there are Hollywood executives out there. Listen very carefully. Do not remake Back to the Future. And you know they're going to.
They're totally capable of
You
doing
know
that.
this
It's
is what's
true.
going. I would not be surprised if there's some studio executive hack who wants to become the next studio head, imprisoning a little writer and try and bringing him bread and water every day, saying you have to rewrite this script.
Yeah.
No, stop it. Buy another Bugatti. Do not do this. But there are other reasons why you can't make it. How are you going to get a director better than Bob Zemeckis to make this movie?
Right. Or more perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to improve on this movie.
Mhm.
Stop. Don't think about it. No, bad idea. This is not going to work. Stop it.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
But they are going to try. I guarantee you they're going to try.
I dropped another one I dropped on my list sort of out of left field was Elf. I see you laughing.
Ah, I love that movie. That is my favorite Christmas movie. It's so irreverent, but also so much a part of the Christmas movie mythology.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, that counts as fantasy, I think.
oh, I definitely think it does. That movie, I don't know. We talked about there being no such thing as perfect movies.
That's, there's another
From
one. What do you change? You don't change, not a hair is out of place in that movie.
well, and again, what scene could you take out?
Right.
That movie has a bunch of lines I like. Um, when he's in the doctor's office talking to the little girl, and he says, "I'm a human raised by elves," and she says, "I'm a human raised by humans." Hilarious. In that cute little munchkin child on the screen in a holiday movie.
Hmm.
Um, and so many iconic scenes uh, where he's eating gum off the railing,
Oh.
the subway railing. And actually, just yesterday, I heard Will Ferrell talking about that. And that is actually gum pulled off the railings.
Mm,
Now, it's gum he chewed
that's good.
before shooting, and there was double-sided sticky tape that held the gum on that subway railing.
Yeah, it's better.
But it's definitely him chewing stuff. And then he talked about how when they're filming the crossing the street scene,
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of those guys actually tried to run him down.
Great.
He said, "When you see me dodging cars, I'm really dodging cars."
Great.
And
Yeah.
and so much of the movie was set up as much as guerrilla style as it could be. Like the scene where he's constantly going through the revolving door.
Hmm.
They just set up the shot one day. They didn't clear any streets. They just set up the cameras and set up the lights and started filming. And
Oh,
so
good for them. That's
when you
awesome.
when you see people crossing the street going like this and staring at him and doing double takes, those are all real reactions.
That's great. God, that makes me want to go and take a look at it again.
Well,
I
that
didn't
movie,
realize you were such, when I put Elf on my list, I had no idea that I was talking to an Elf scholar. I'm so impressed here.
I love that movie. It is, you know, people our age, a lot of them believe that the best Christmas movie ever is A Christmas Story.
No,
Oh
it's
no.
not. I know they do. It is not.
Well, here's the thing. That's based on a series of radio programs that I can't remember the guy's name. Used to do, he's a nostalgia radio theater guy, and he used to do all these interesting things. So he did a series of vignettes, um, talking about Christmas in the 30s when he was growing up.
Mhm.
So my father thinks A Christmas Story is a documentary because of so much stuff that happened exactly the way it happened when he was a kid in the 30s. So for people, the generation before us, they love that movie. But I would even think that for our specific part of that generation, it's one of the best movies. It's one of their favorite Christmas movies. But Elf, I love it. It's so subversive of the Christmas holiday movie genre, but also such a loving tribute to it that I love it. Here's the other reason why I love Elf. It's because that's the only way you get Iron Man.
What? Okay. Oh. Who directed it? Did Favreau direct it?
John Favreau directed
Okay.
Elf,
All right.
and He only agreed to do Elf if they would give him the job for Iron Man.
Hmm.
And when he made a boatload of money with Elf, they said, okay, now you can do Iron Man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we all know the story about how Favreau said, nope, only guy who can do is Robert Downey Jr.
Hmm.
And then the studio said, no, he's too much of an insurance risk. Uh, John Favreau went, yeah, movie's dead now.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to get the MCU going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they knew they couldn't, even though I believe Captain America came out first.
No, Iron Man was the first one.
Okay.
Captain
Then
America was second.
I'm thinking chronologically then. Uh,
Hmm.
but there is no MCO without Downey as Iron Man.
Oh,
Sorry.
absolutely not. And yeah, and Elf is, I think, unremakable. Every bit as you talked about other Christmas movies, every bit as much as It's a Wonderful Life is unremakable.
Yep.
And there you go. Yeah.
Well, and how do you replace Zoe Deschanel?
Yeah, really. Oh, she was just so wonderful. I mean, like
Yeah.
sweet wonderful, that
Well,
kind of thing.
and the thing is though, but she's New York woman raised wonderful
Hmm.
because, when he's in the shower, she's like, "Oh my God, get out of the shower." It's exactly how a lady from New York would say it. But yet she's very sweet with him and very caring and tries to take care of this fish out of water. And what a voice on her. You can't do it. Casting, production design, direction, acting, it can't be done. It
Yeah.
can be done. That's a good one. You got me there. Um, well, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to do this though.
Oh,
I gotta bring up a third Stanley Kubrick movie,
oh, yeah, go for it.
Clockwork Orange.
Oh, right, of course. You can't remake. Well, now my mind is sort of wandering here. I wonder if I agree with you or not. I don't think I'm going to be able to give you an answer this show. I'm going to have to sleep on that for a week.
Well, let me give you my reasoning. It's only two words. Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah.
Who replaces him?
Yeah. Bastard who killed Captain Kirk.
Yes, you're gonna have to find an unknown actor.
Mhm. Yeah, you're probably right about that.
There is no one in Hollywood. There's no one in England. There is no one who could replace Malcolm McDowell. Part manic serial killer energy, part, oh my God, I'm a lost little sheep after the Ludovico treatment. Uh, part absolute reprobate.
Yeah.
Um,
And part child, I think.
yes. Well, and that's kind of the whole point
Yeah.
is he's a force of nature and it's a terrible, he's a hurricane, tornado, wildfire force of nature.
Hmm.
He's not the manic pixie girl force of nature. You can't do it. And
No.
again, we run into the whole problem with visual style. We run into the problem of direction. But really, casting here is the big thing. You can't do it. I
But I
mean,
know why you really love it,
why?
because it's got the same moral as Serenity.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. See, you can't make people better.
Yeah, right.
It cannot be done.
At least not in the way that they're trying to say. I mean,
Well, let me put it this way. The state cannot make people better.
there you go. So
There's
I'm
there's someone else who says that almost better than they do because it's so much more brief. James Madison, if
you'll
men
have
were
to, yeah.
angels, no government would be necessary.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So this is my favorite thing to tell libertarians. They
So
they believe they believe that if you just leave people alone, they'll do the right thing. Oh, really? If men were angels, no government would be necessary.
well,
So yeah,
I'm going to throw you out a name, a director's name, because he's on my nice list and he's on my naughty list. I got two movies here. Uh, Spielberg, Steven Spielberg. I think Jaws, you cannot touch. It's one of
no,
those flawless movies. You'd make it with a bunch of special effects, which would drag it down. I think it's right there. You never touch that. And then on the other side, I don't think necessarily one could never remake War of the Worlds, but I think I know people love it, but I thought his was kind of dark and dull, and another movie I'd kind of forgotten by the time the credits stopped rolling. I'm not gonna say that you can't remake War of the Worlds because I think it's the kind of book you could always remake, but
Yeah.
I don't think he should have made it.
No, I agree. And again, for me, this movie's a casting problem.
Uh,
Tom Cruise is too much of an action hero for this movie.
yeah. I mean,
He's
he's
too
got
much.
talent, but he's too Tom Cruise now.
Yeah, yeah, it's too movie star.
Hmm.
Um, he's dark, but I'll tell you though, who's the real star of that movie? Tim Robbins.
Yeah. Well, Tim Robbins is pretty dependable.
Well, no, but I mean, he steals that movie from Tom
Hmm.
Cruise in the scene where where Tom Cruise has to murder him.
Hmm. Yeah, I
God,
remember it that well. I really did forget it.
that's yeah. Um, but but you're right. I don't think you know. I think you could remake War of the Worlds. I think this goes back to your literary origin rule.
Hmm.
I think you should do it, but yeah, Spielberg is interesting because he proves what I call the Howard the Duck rule that no matter how great you are, you're going to have some bombs out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big bomb for Steven Spielberg for me is 1941.
I yes and no. I also think it was sort of I have a little bit of a fond space in my heart for it, but I certainly can't defend it. Let's
But
put
that's
it
just
that way.
because it has Aykroyd and Belushi in it.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
contention. Now, I'm going to bring up one that I think you could remake, and it's going to bring us kind of full circle. AI.
Huh. Yeah, really. You got both of our big directors there. Yeah.
I did not like that movie. I don't think it was well done at all.
Hmm.
It definitely does not fit into our category today of movies that should not be remade. I think that movie is huge potential to be remade.
That wasn't, I have mixed feelings about that movie, which means I'd probably agree with you on that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the reason why I do. I think they did some really great things in that movie,
Hmm.
but the end, sleepy in the end. How much scene do we have to watch the ocean changing before you get to the incredibly elongated grays at the end?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
just it's a sleeper of a movie. And the sad thing about that movie is you can tell what Kubrick was going for.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, he never had a chance to finish that vision.
Yeah,
And
that was
although
a bad mix. The two of them, Kubrick, Spielberg do not go together.
nope, nope, nope. And especially, I don't know if that's and this has nothing to do with genre, but I'll tell you one that can't be remade either for obvious reasons. And that's uh Schindler's List.
Yeah. I mean, there have been movies similar, but you can't remake that movie. I agree with you.
It's well, so much of that is Spielberg and Spielberg's passion and
Hmm.
Spielberg's emotional reaction to the events it depicts. How can you do that?
Yeah.
It's, you know, you could do that movie, you could remake that movie and make it even darker and grittier. But that movie, and people are going to hate me for saying this, is also very much about a movie, it is also very much about lighting a candle in the darkness. That movie is
Okay.
it is as bleak as it is,
Hmm.
it's fundamentally, I think, about hope.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, 100%.
And well, the other thing that makes that movie is Schindler's transition from sleazy, money grubbing bureaucrat to or not bureaucrat, but corporate guy to holy crap, what am I doing?
Mhm.
He's as close as you get to Scrooge in real life.
Oh, and that
But then
scene
you run
at
into
the
casting
end.
with that. You run into casting with that problem again. Who the hell is
Mm,
going to play Oscar Schindler?
yeah, I agree with you.
And
Um,
and people that was people don't remember this, but when they cast Liam Neeson as Schindler, people went, "Oh, this is going to be terrible." Wrong.
well, that was a movie that introduced a lot of audiences to Liam Neeson too. So I think the ones, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's why the detractors got no traction, is
Yeah,
because for most folks, it was like, here, meet this
it
guy.
could be. I know we're a little bit off topic, but I just think you have to, you know, given the political climate today, we might be really on topic because I suspect there are some people out there who believe that's all a myth.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they deserve the Captain America treatment there.
Nazi punched in the face.
Yes, Nazi
Yeah.
punching.
Yeah. So
Um, Go ahead.
I want to mention one just really quickly. There's little said about it, the better, because it's a combination of one that should never be remade, one that was remade and remade not just badly, but pointlessly. And that's Psycho. What the hell? You can't remake it. And then Gus Van Sant goes and remakes it. Okay, you're remaking it. You're crossing a line you shouldn't cross. Whatever. Let's see your vision. But what he remakes is a shot for shot remake.
But it was in
Who
color.
cares? Who cares? I mean, that's
Yeah.
like some kind of weird film school vanity project that somebody would do. Why would you? What studio? Why?
What that is Justin Bieber trying to record Please Please Me.
And doing it literally exactly in the same tone, every inflection. It's just weird. It's just weird.
Yeah, no,
Weird.
that was a look at me, I'm a brilliant director. Look at me, look at me. That was definitely a personal project that, you know, this is the opposite of the Schindler's List.
Hmm.
It's that the opposite of Schindler's List. This was clearly a passion project for Gus Van Sant. He loves the movie. He thinks it's a perfect movie. So he thought he'd take a shot at it.
And so
And
he
I
just
think
remade the perfect movie exactly the same. No new vision, no nothing. It was just this. It was the same movie.
I'm going to defend him just a minute because I think I know what I have a hypothesis about what he was thinking. I think he was thinking different cast makes it a different movie.
Not enough.
But let me just tell you, uh, Vince Vaughn, terrible in that movie. Just terrible. And who in God's name would ever think Anne Heche could replace Janet Leigh?
She was just like a nothing in that movie. I mean, I'm not going to say she was bad. I'm going to say she was
No,
nothing.
insert actress of the month here.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Just
And no,
bland to
and
the point of invisibility.
yeah, and putting it in color is just a giant mistake.
Yeah, dumb.
All right, I'm going to tell you one more, and this
Okay.
is going to be
And then we'll
controversial.
get to the elephant in the room, unless that's what
Yes.
you've got.
No, it's not. It's definitely not because this one just popped into my head. I don't think you can remake the original Hunger Games.
Oh, well, that's interesting. It certainly has burrowed itself into popular culture in a way
Oh,
that you could
people are
argue
going to
is
try. They're
iconic.
already talking about rebooting the whole series.
They are, aren't they talking about making it as a streaming show, or am I making that up?
No, no.
I might be making that up.
Now, of course,
I'm going to look that up.
the problem with that is that we know what the Hunger Games is a remake of.
Well, I mean, you
Battle
could say,
Royale.
oh, that's interesting. I was going to say The Running Man.
Battle Royale.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I seen Battle Royale? I don't think I
Oh,
have.
if you haven't, you need to. It is compelling. And
No,
here's
I
the
was thinking of a different movie. I have not seen Battle Royale for
oh,
sure.
I'm not going to spoil it for you. I mean, I kind of have, but not really. But again, we have talked about this. I don't think you replace uh, Jennifer Lawrence.
Hmm.
I don't think anybody can play Katniss Everdeen. And let me be clear, the first movie is pretty damn good. It's
Right.
not, it's not in the league of many of the movies that we've talked about today. But I think this is a casting and a zeitgeist example of that. I think you can't remake it. Besides, who's ever going to replace Stanley Tucci?
He is so good. I
Oh,
love that actor.
did you hear what he said recently about his role in Captain America?
No,
He says his favorite movie he's ever made.
no, no kidding. Well, that was a great role. He really had a lot of he always has a lot of charisma. He's terrific.
I'll tell you another movie I love him in is Easy A.
I only vaguely remember that movie.
Well, he
Yeah, so I
he
couldn't give an opinion on it.
he plays her ridiculously progressive dad.
Hmm.
But I mean, Stanley Tucci has so much dad energy to begin with. But now I'm telling you, this is a guy who could do anything. I have seen movies where Stanley Tucci was incredibly threatening as the bad guy.
Yeah, that seems yeah, I mean, I can totally see that. I'm not thinking of what movies you're referring to, but I
I
feel
don't
like I
either,
should know.
yeah, I know. But he can do anything. He
He
could
can
do
do
any
anything.
kind of movie you want.
Yeah, I
If
agree.
you want
He's
a
one
gay
of those.
romantic comedy, Stanley
Hmm.
Tucci can crush it.
Yep, yep,
I even think Stanley Tucci could be an action star.
yeah, yep.
He
Well,
it would have to be a brainy action film,
hmm.
like a spy movie. Holy crap, Tucci would be great in that. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah.
I don't think you could remake um, Hunger Games, the first one. There's way too many movies in that series, but the first one is pretty good.
First one is the one that has a really sort of a unique flavor to it. I agree.
Yeah.
Um, and I just looked it up. There is a remake of sorts being made of it, but as a stage show. So that's
Huh.
such an utter reimagining. That's in a completely different medium.
Yeah. No,
That could be interesting. I don't see how it
yeah.
works in a million years, to be honest, but it would be interesting to see them try, or it will be interesting to see
Well,
them try.
I think it has universal enough themes that it could be done, but boy, whoever's doing it had better be a just brilliant writer
Yeah. Yeah.
because film, they're probably doing an adaptation from the book. Um, but yeah, I don't think you can remake it.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies.
I can see that for sure. So should we mention the big one that we haven't mentioned yet?
Of course.
Star Wars?
Yeah. Uh, despite their best effort in movie number seven,
Yeah, really, seriously. God.
J.J. Abrams fail.
Oh,
That
well,
was
yeah, and just before we go on too long, I have to explain it to all
yeah.
those who weren't there and to all those who are uh, not at least Generation X. And that's that it's Star Wars A New Hope that we're talking about. That hurts me to say that, still hurts me to say that because I'm old. It just Star Wars, it's like Fonzie trying to say he was wrong. Remember that?
Yeah. And they did the same thing though with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
They changed the name.
They renamed Raiders of the Lost Ark to
What?
Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Are you sure about that?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to go with it then. That I did not know.
Bad.
That's bad. That's messed up then. That's screwed up.
That is bad.
Hmm.
Yes. Oh, do you mean Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark? No, no, I do not. Yeah, no, you can't remake Star Wars. There was nothing like it before. There will never be anything like it again.
Yeah.
Virtual unknowns, except for Alec Guinness, who hated making every part of that movie.
Yes, he did.
And in fact, when Carrie Fisher died, I thought, you know what she's doing? She's needling the hell out of Alec Guinness about how wrong he was about, and she's doing it in a very attractive way that would make him laugh. But Yeah, you can't do it. I mean, what movie? People don't understand this. You and I understand it. M- Blockbuster, massive, huge hits now stay in the theater 3 weeks.
Yeah,
That's it.
before the next one rolls over.
3 weeks and you're out,
Hmm.
right? Yeah. We had theaters in Fort Worth which ran it for 5 years.
Hmm. Sure.
5 years. And this is back in the day before there were tons of multiplexes. This would be one theater, one screen. It can show one movie, 5 years, five showings a day.
Yeah.
Um,
You just made me think of another movie that I know this is supposed to be the last one, but I got to mention it. You're talking about movies running in theaters for years. Another one that should never be remade. You know what I'm going to say?
yeah, I do.
Rocky Horror Picture
Yeah, that's
Show.
right. I will tell you, I know somebody who could, he's too old now, but if he were younger, I know an actor who could replace Tim Curry.
No,
Oh,
I
yeah.
refuse to believe that.
Alan Cumming.
He's too long in the tooth now, though. But I
That's
wonder
what I said. He's too old now.
he would have been a good second place, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Um, I think, yeah, I think he could have done a good job, but I don't think it would have been as good a job.
No, I agree. And you do know who did it in the stage version, don't you?
I Oh, I think I've heard, but I don't know. Who was it?
Rupert Giles, Anthony Stewart Head.
Oh, really?
He
Oh,
did a great job of it
wow.
too. There's clips of him online. He does a killer job of it.
Oh, I
He's
can
no
see
Tim
that.
Curry,
Yeah. No, I can
but
see that.
he did a great job of it. And I've been watching Ted Lasso, and
Oh, he's great. It was good to see him again, wasn't it? It's
it
like we
was,
hadn't seen him in anything for so
and
long, and
he
boom, it's Giles.
he is just a giant jerk in that show.
Yeah.
And you know what? Except for when he originally shows up on camera, I didn't think, oh, Rupert would never be like that. Giles could never. Nope, he's totally immersed in that role.
Mhm.
Giles disappears completely, and God, what a wanker in that show. But yeah, I almost put Serenity on this list.
Yeah, well, I think that whole series was so Joss Whedon, you can't really remake it. Actually, I think you're right about that.
But by God, they're going to try and do Buffy without him.
Maybe that keeps coming up and back and forth, and they
They'll
never
do it
quite seems to
eventually.
happen. They probably will. Yeah, you're
I
probably
mean,
right.
that window is closing though.
Or maybe it's just opening. I don't know.
I think it's
We needed
closing.
distance.
I think the popularity is there,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's there with Gen Alpha.
Hmm.
I
Gen
think it's
Alpha.
barely there with Gen Z.
Hmm.
And so it's
Well, then
either going to be,
but it could be a reintroduction opportunity.
yeah. I love God love them, the diehard fans who think James Marsters is still young enough looking to play Spike.
Well, he still looks the same, just intensely more wrinkly.
Yes, yes. He does not have the same physique he had, though, let me just tell you. Although most people didn't have the physique that James Marsters had in that
Yeah,
movie.
that's true.
I used to swim 10,000 meters a day and do 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 sit-ups a day, and I did not have James Marsters' physique.
Well,
That's
we've been talking for an hour. We were
Yeah,
afraid we didn't have enough to go on with this topic, that the other one was easier, and here we go. And I think we could keep going forever.
yeah. There's a lot of things. I'd have to figure out more movies, but I think we hit a lot of points here,
We did. Nice
and
free-flowing convo.
and nobody's surprised that Stanley Kubrick is at the top of the don't remake list.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
He was that's if you're listening and you haven't seen anything by Stanley Kubrick, 2001, Clockwork Orange, The Shining, any of those is a great place to start.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you know what my favorite movie of his is?
It's not 2001. Shame,
It's
shame.
not.
Ugh, you wound
Barry
me.
Lyndon.
Oh, Barry Lyndon. Yeah, I
You know
forgot
why?
about Barry Lyndon. No, tell me.
Watch that movie by yourself with no distractions. Every scene is an 18th century painting.
Hmm.
Every single one. Besides, the music is great. You under totally lost on Ryan O'Neal and his appeal until you see that movie.
I'll have to I'll have to look at it with that in mind. Yeah, it's, it's been a while.
Barry Lyndon is it's his most comprehensive work ever. I think that's Kubrick at the top of his game. But we can talk about that ridiculously over the top statement later.
Well, there you go, though. Well, we're ending on a perhaps an unexpected, unremakeable movie there. And I guess with that, we're going to be out of here.
Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time.
Our theme music is by Christopher Piatek.